At exactly 3 in the morning, something changes. Not in the world you can see, but in the one you feel. The house is silent. Your phone hasn't moved. No notifications. No noise. No reason to be awake. And yet, you are. Your eyes open without effort, as if summoned. Your thoughts feel sharper, heavier, more intrusive. Memories resurface. Questions you buried during the day return with precision. This isn't coincidence, and it isn't weakness. Across cultures, across centuries, humans have reported the same experience. Waking between 3 and 4 in the morning with a sense of heightened awareness, unease, or clarity. Ancient traditions called it the thin hour, the moment when the boundary between conscious and unconscious dissolves. Modern neuroscience offers a different explanation, but arrives at the same conclusion. At night, your brain changes states. Cortisol rises, melatonin drops. The prefrontal filters that normally protect you from emotional overload loosen their grip. The result is a rare psychological condition, one where truth surfaces unedited. This is why unresolved fears feel louder at night, why intuition feels stronger, why creative insights arrive uninvited, and why anxiety, regret, or existential dread often peak at this exact hour. Your mind is no longer performing for the world, it is speaking to you. Most people fight this moment. They reach for distraction, they force sleep. They label the experience as insomnia and move on. But that is a mistake, because the 3 a.m. phenomenon is not a malfunction. It is an opening, a strategic window where the subconscious steps forward and the ego steps aside. In this audiobook, you'll learn what is actually happening in your brain at 3 in the morning, why this hour has been feared, revered, and misunderstood, and how to use this state, rather than suffer from it, to access insight, emotional resolution, and deep psychological clarity. When the world goes quiet, your mind tells the truth. The question is no longer why you wake up at 3 a.m. The question is whether you're ready to listen. Chapter 1. The Architecture of Silence. You know the feeling. The rest of the world has finally shut down. The streets outside your window are empty, and the relentless ping of notifications has ceased. You are lying in the dark, staring at the shadows that stretch across the ceiling. It is 3 in the morning. This is the hour of the wolf. It is that strange and solitary bridge between the death of yesterday and the birth of tomorrow. Most people dread this time. You look at the glowing numbers on the clock with a rising sense of panic. You begin to calculate exactly how many hours of sleep you will lose and how tired you will be when the sun rises. But there is something else happening here. There is a reason why the silence feels so heavy, and why your thoughts seem to echo with a clarity that is impossible to find at noon. You might feel like you are the only conscious being on the planet. This isolation is not a punishment. It is a biological and psychological state that shifts your entire perspective on reality. We often hear the phrase that the veil thins at night. In ancient folklore, that meant the barrier between the living and the dead. But we are looking at the architecture of the mind. In this context, the veil is the filter between your conscious awareness and your subconscious processing. To understand why you are awake and why your mind is racing, we have to look at the electrical hum of your brain. During the chaos of the day, you operate mostly in beta waves. That is, the frequency of busy work. It is rapid and reactive and focused on survival. It is the state of mind required to drive a car or answer an email. When you sleep, you sink into the slow, rolling ocean of delta waves, where consciousness fades entirely. But right here at the edge of 3 in the morning, you are not in either of those places. You often enter a unique hybrid state. Neuroscience identifies a spike in activity known as gamma brainwaves during these periods of nocturnal wakefulness. These are not the sluggish waves of rest. They are the waves of high-level information processing. They are associated with bursts of insight and moments of peak concentration. It is a profound irony of human biology that your brain decides to reach its highest frequency when your body is most desperate for rest. This gamma state is the neurological equivalent of a supercomputer turning on in a dark room. Consider the architecture of your daily life. During the day, your sensory inputs are maxed out. You are constantly filtering traffic noise and conversations and the visual chaos of the modern world. Your brain is busy just keeping track of your physical surroundings so you do not walk into walls or step into traffic. This is sensory gating. It takes up a massive amount of energy. But at night, the architecture of silence takes over. The sensory input drops to near zero. There is no sunlight. There is no traffic. There is no demand for your social performance. When that external static fades, the internal signal becomes deafening. Your brain is suddenly free to connect distant dots without the interference of the physical world. This is why you suddenly remember an embarrassing moment from 10 years ago with vivid and painful detail. It is also why you might solve a complex problem that stumped you all week. The silence acts as a blank canvas, and the gamma waves act as the paint. The combination creates a hyper-reality where every thought feels significant and every worry feels monumental. This is not mystical. It is simply what happens when the machinery of the mind is left running without any raw materials to process. It starts processing itself. So if you are awake right now, do not fight the silence with anxiety. You are experiencing a rare moment of uninhibited cognitive power. The architecture of silence is not empty. It is filled with the raw data of your own life, waiting to be sorted. This nocturnal clarity can be a tool if you learn how to navigate it without fear. We will explore how to harness this state rather than suffer through it in the chapters to come. If you want to follow that thread and understand the mechanics of your own mind deeper, then please make sure you are subscribed to this channel. Let us continue this study of the night together. Chapter 2. The Guardian at the Cave Mouth. Imagine you are standing at the entrance of a vast cavern. This is the primitive architecture of your mind. During the daylight hours, there is a sentry posted at the mouth of this cave. We call this sentry the prefrontal cortex. It is the seat of your executive function. It is the logical, strict librarian that tells you to focus on your daily tasks and ignore the sudden memory of a heartbreak from a decade ago. It filters the noise. It keeps the chaos of pure association at bay, so you can function in a structured society. It perceives a threat and categorizes it. It perceives a distraction and discards it. But at 3 a.m, the sentry is tired. The executive function is offline. The biology of the night demands that the body rest, and so the brain downregulates the expensive machinery of logic and order. The guardian has left the post. The heavy doors that usually separate your rational mind from your emotional core are left ajar. Here lies the paradox of your insomnia. You might expect that without the guardian, your brain would simply descend into the slow, rolling fog of deep sleep. You expect the heavy, slow delta waves that accompany a restorative rest. But often, that is not what happens. Instead, you hit a frequency that is electric and sharp. Neuroscience offers us a fascinating map for this territory. It identifies a specific state of brain activity known as gamma waves. These are not the sluggish waves of drowsiness. They are the fastest and most subtle brainwave frequencies. They are typically associated with intense focus, high-level information processing, and moments of peak cognitive synthesis, It is the spark of insight. It is the brainwave of the virtuoso in a flow state. And, strangely enough, it is the brainwave of the insomniac staring at the ceiling in the dark. This creates a unique and sometimes harrowing experience. Your logic centers are powered down, yet your association centers are firing at maximum capacity. This is why the thoughts that come to you in the dark feel so undeniably real and absolute. In the harsh light of noon, you can dismiss an existential fear as irrational. You have the armor of logic. You have the context of the day. But at night, you are naked. The gamma waves are forging connections between distant memories and current fears, with a speed that is dazzling and terrifying. This is not a dream. This is hyper-reality. You are not just thinking. You are hyper-thinking, without the safety rails of judgment. The veil has thinned, but this veil is not a mystical curtain between worlds. It is the biological barrier between the subconscious and the conscious. When we speak of the veil thinning, we are describing the chemical reality of a brain that is simultaneously exhausted and overactive. The filters are gone. This explains why you might suddenly solve a complex problem that plagued you all week. It also explains why you might become paralyzed by a sudden realization of your own mortality. Both the genius idea and the crippling anxiety are products of the same mechanic. The guardian is asleep, and the raw data of your life is flooding the system without censorship. So when you find yourself awake in that hollow hour, do not mistake this for madness. It is not a malfunction of your character. It is a specific, unguarded, mechanical state. You are experiencing the world through a brain that has ceased to inhibit itself. You are standing at the cave mouth, peering into the dark, and for once there is nothing standing in your way. The silence you hear is not empty. It is waiting for the signal. Chapter 3. Between the Worlds. You know the texture of your ceiling in the dark better than you know the lines on your own palm. It is 3 in the morning. The digital clock is the only source of light in the room, and it casts a harsh and judgmental red glow across the floor. You are awake. Again. There is a specific kind of panic that sets in during this hour. It starts in the chest and radiates outward. It is the mathematical anxiety of calculating how many hours are left before the alarm screams. You count backward from 7. You realize you have 4 hours left. Then 3. Then you are simply lying there in the silence, waiting for the sun to accuse you of wasting the night. But let us pause the panic for a moment and look at the architecture of this experience. You are not broken. You are not suffering from a defect of character. You have simply walked through a door that most people keep shut. In the ancient world, this time was called the second sleep or the watch of the night. It was expected that a human being would wake when the darkness was at its deepest. It was not a disorder. It was a time for tending to the fire or checking the locks. But biologically, something fascinating happens in this quiet interlude. Your brain is supposed to be descending into the slow and rolling waves of delta sleep. That is the deep restoration. That is the coma of the healthy. But right now, you are experiencing the exact opposite. You are surging. Neuroscience calls this the gamma state. It is a frequency of brain activity usually reserved for moments of extreme focus or high-level problem-solving. It is the spark of insight. It is the electricity of a new idea connecting two disparate concepts. This is the irony of your insomnia. You are lying in a body that demands rest, but your mind has accelerated into its highest possible gear. You are running a marathon while strapped to a bed. This is why the veil feels thin. We are not talking about a veil between the living and the dead, or any mystical barrier. We are talking about the veil between your conscious mind and your subconscious reality. During the day, the noise of the world is deafening. You have emails to answer, and traffic to navigate, and social masks to wear. Your brain is busy filtering out millions of signals just to keep you functioning. The filter is thick. It has to be. If you felt everything, you would function nowhere. But at 3 a.m, the world has stopped screaming. The sensory input is gone. There is no sunlight. There is no conversation. The traffic has died down. The filter is no longer necessary, so it dissolves. This is the thinning of the veil. It is the moment when the guard at the gate goes on break. Suddenly, the things you have been repressing all day come walking through the front door. The worries you pushed down, the ideas you ignored, the truths you were too busy to acknowledge. They are all here now, sitting on the edge of your bed. This gamma state is a biological hyperconnectivity. Your brain is integrating information at a speed that feels overwhelming because there is nowhere for the energy to go. You are a closed circuit humming with too much voltage. So when you find yourself staring at the dark ceiling, do not force your eyes closed. Do not fight the chemistry of your own mind. You are in a state of heightened reality. You are between the worlds of the sleeping and the awake. You are vibrating at a frequency of pure awareness. The silence around you is not empty. It is heavy with your own unthinking thoughts. The veil has not been lifted by magic. It has been lifted by biology. You are finally alone with yourself, and that is the most terrifying and necessary place to be. Chapter 4. The internal critic sleeps. You lie there convinced that this wakefulness is a flaw, a biological error. You look at the clock and calculate how many hours remain before the alarm cuts through the silence. You worry about fatigue. You worry about performance. But amidst that anxiety, there is something else happening beneath the surface. Something rare. Consider the architecture of your daylight mind. From the moment you wake up in the morning, you are a performer. You step onto a stage lit by the sun, and you engage with the world. You navigate traffic and social hierarchies and emails and expectations. To do this, you require a manager, a filter. Neuroscience identifies this filter as the prefrontal cortex. It is the part of your brain responsible for logic and planning and social inhibition. It is the internal critic that stands guard at the door of your thoughts. It tells you what is appropriate. It tells you what is impossible. It edits your sentences before you speak them and curbs your impulses before you act on them. It is necessary for survival in a civilized world. But at 3 a.m., the manager has clocked out. This is the physiological reality of the night. As the body rests, the metabolic activity in the frontal lobe decreases. The rigid, linear thinking that governs your workday begins to dissolve. The sentry leaves his post, and when the critic sleeps, the rest of the mind comes alive in a way that is impossible during the heat of the day. This is not a state of dormancy, it is a shift in frequency. While the logical brain dims, another electrical pattern begins to surge. This is the gamma brainwave state. In the study of the mind, gamma waves are associated with high-level information processing. They are the signature of insight. They appear when different parts of the brain that usually do not speak to one another suddenly make a connection. It is the spark of the aha moment. During the day, the noise of the world and the strict order of your internal critic drown out these subtle signals. You are too busy reacting to notice the synthesis happening in the deep archives of your memory. But here in the quiet, the signal-to-noise ratio flips. This is why the solution to a complex problem that evaded you all week suddenly arrives fully formed in the middle of the night. It is why you remember a name you forgot 10 years ago. It is why writers and artists and mathematicians have historically guarded these hours with jealous intensity. They understood instinctively what we now map biologically. They knew that when the editor is asleep, the creator is free to run wild. You are experiencing a form of hyperconnectivity. The barriers between your memories and your emotions and your ideas have become porous. The veil that thins is not some mystical curtain between you and a spirit world. It is the biological barrier between your conscious control and your subconscious depth. So when you find yourself awake while the rest of the world slumbers, do not fight it with frustration. Do not waste this state on worrying about tomorrow. Recognize what is happening. You have been granted access to the raw, unchecked power of your own cognition. The voice that usually tells you, "No, that is silly," or "No, that will not work," is silent. In its place is a pure stream of association. You are not broken because you are awake. You have simply entered a room in your own mind that is usually locked. The guard is gone. The heavy doors are open. And for a few fleeting hours, you are free to explore the library of your own consciousness without anyone looking over your shoulder. Chapter 5. The Solitary Confessional. There is a specific texture to the air at 3 in the morning. It feels thinner and sharper than the heavy atmosphere of the afternoon. You wake up and the darkness of the room presses against your eyes. The silence of the house is absolute. In this moment, you might feel a sudden spike of anxiety. You might look at the glowing numbers on the clock and begin the frantic arithmetic of how many hours of rest remain before the alarm sounds. But if you can look past that initial panic, you will find yourself standing in the solitary confessional. This is the time when the social architecture of your life collapses. The titles you hold and the responsibilities you carry during the day dissolve into the shadows in the corner of the room. There is no audience here. There is no one to perform for. You are left alone with the raw data of your own existence. This is why the waking state at this hour feels so profound and sometimes so terrifying. The barrier between your conscious mind and your subconscious deepens, is gone. We often mistake this wakefulness for a disorder. We treat it as a biological error that needs to be corrected with warm milk or medication. However, looking at the mechanics of the brain reveals a different story. Neuroscientists have observed that during these moments between deep sleep and full wakefulness, the brain can enter a unique state of high-frequency processing, known as gamma brainwaves. During the day, our brains typically operate in beta waves, which are useful for logic and critical thinking, and navigating the chaotic sensory input of the world. As we drift off, we slide into alpha and theta states, where relaxation takes over. But the gamma state is different. It is the fastest and most subtle of the brainwave frequencies. It is associated with moments of extreme insight and high-level information synthesis. It is the frequency of the epiphany. This explains the clarity that arrives in the dark. It is why you might suddenly understand the solution to a problem that has plagued you for weeks. It is why a forgotten memory returns with startling vividness. Your brain is not broken in these moments. It is hyper-connected. The noise of the external world has been muted, allowing internal signals to finally be heard. The static of traffic and conversation and digital notifications is gone, leaving only the clear signal of your own mind. In this solitary confessional, you finally tell yourself the truth. The defensive mechanisms that protect your ego during the daylight hours are asleep. You cannot lie to yourself at 3 in the morning. You admit that you are unhappy in your career, or that you are deeply in love, or that you have been neglecting a vital part of your character. The realizations are often stark and unadorned. They arrive without the cushioning of social pleasantries. This is the thinning of the veil. It is not a mystical opening to another dimension, but a psychological opening to the totality of your own self. The terrifying aspect of this hour is simply the shock of encountering your own unmasked consciousness. You are seeing the reality of your life without the filters you apply for the benefit of others. Instead of fighting this wakefulness, try to view it as a necessary appointment. This is a meeting with the architect of your own psychology. The insomnia is not an affliction, but a signal that there is information ready to be processed. The brain has entered a state of heightened integration. It is weaving together disparate threads of your experience into a coherent tapestry. So when you find yourself staring at the ceiling in the deep quiet, do not force your eyes closed. Do not berate yourself for being awake. Listen to the silence. Let the gamma waves run their course. Allow the confession to happen. You are safe here in the dark, and the clarity you find now is the foundation upon which you will build your tomorrow. The night is not keeping you from your rest. It is giving you your truth. Chapter 6. The Mystery of the Second Sleep. You lie there in the dark, and you look at the clock. It is 3 in the morning. You calculate how many hours remain before the alarm screams and the day demands your attention. You feel broken. You feel like your body has failed at the simple and essential task of rest. You assume that this wakefulness is a defect or a sign of anxiety that has slipped past your defenses. But let us turn the page back 300 years. Let us step into a world before the street lamp and the glowing screen. In that era, the setting sun was the final curtain on the day. People retired early, not out of discipline, but out of necessity. They slept for 4 hours in a state of deep physical restoration. This was known as the first sleep. Then something remarkable happened. They woke up. They did not wake up in a panic. They did not reach for a phone that did not exist. They woke up into a quiet and expected hour known as the watch. This was not insomnia. It was a standard part of the human experience. It was a scheduled intermission in the theater of dreams. During this hour, the brain does something that defies our modern understanding of tiredness. You might expect to be groggy. You might expect the heavy fog of sleep inertia to pin you to the mattress. Instead, neurobiology tells us that the brain can enter a unique state of high-frequency gamma activity. This is the frequency of insight. It is the frequency of hyper-focus. Most of your waking day is spent in beta waves, which are useful for stress and logic and navigating traffic. Sleep is the domain of slow delta waves. But here, in the middle of the night, you sit on the bridge between the two. This gamma state is why the problem that seemed unsolvable at noon suddenly unravels with crystal clarity at 3 in the morning. Your brain has not malfunctioned. It has shifted gears. It is operating with the fluid creativity of a dream, but the sharp retention of waking life. In the days of the second sleep, this hour was used for the most important work of the human heart. Writers would journal by candlelight. Philosophers would contemplate complex structures. Neighbors who shared a bed might talk quietly in the dark. It was a time of unguarded honesty. The defenses of the day were down, but the engine of the mind was running hot. Then the Industrial Revolution arrived with its factory whistles and its electric bulbs. We declared war on the dark. We compressed our rest into a single 8-hour block to maximize our time on the assembly line. We declared that waking up in the middle of the night was a medical disorder. We pathologized an ancient rhythm. We took a natural feature of human biology and we renamed it maintenance insomnia. So when you find yourself awake tonight, do not fight it. Do not lie there wrestling with the sheets and cursing your biology. You are simply experiencing the echo of the second sleep. You are entering that golden hour of gamma waves, where the internal critic is silent and the creative mind is awake. The tragedy is not that you are awake. The tragedy is that the modern world has left no room for this waking. You are a traveler with an ancient map trying to navigate a modern city. The road is not broken. It just does not match the territory anymore. Recognize the sensation for what it is. It is a biological invitation. Your mind has risen to the surface for air. It is seeking that gamma state where the connections between disparate ideas become visible. You are not an insomniac suffering from a deficit of sleep. You are a sentinel keeping the ancient watch. You are awake because for thousands of years, this was the time when we were most human. Chapter 7. The Velvet Cage. You know the texture of the ceiling in the dark. You know the exact weight of the duvet as it settles over your legs. And you know the rhythm of the house as it cools down for the night. This is the hour where the bedroom transforms. It is no longer a sanctuary for rest. It becomes a container. We call this the velvet cage. It is soft and warm and familiar, but you are undoubtedly trapped inside it. There is a specific frustration that blooms at 3 in the morning. It is the friction between your biology and your psychology. Your body is exhausted. The muscles are heavy, and the limbs feel as though they have sunk halfway into the mattress. Physical movement feels impossible, or at least tremendously difficult. You are pinned by the gravity of sleep that refuses to arrive. Yet inside the skull, the mind is not only awake, it is sprinting. This is the defining feature of the velvet cage. You are physically restrained by comfort, while mentally accelerating. If you were fully awake, you would get up and do the dishes or read a book. If you were fully asleep, you would be dreaming. Instead, you are suspended in the gap. You are caught in a state of hyper-arousal that feels entirely contradictory to the silence of the room. Neuroscience offers a map for this territory. It tells us that this specific clarity is the result of gamma brainwaves. In the grand orchestra of your brain activity, gamma is the highest frequency. It is the humming vibration of extreme focus. During the day, you might experience a burst of gamma waves when you solve a complex math problem, or when you suddenly understand a joke. It is the frequency of insight. It binds information from different parts of the brain together into a cohesive picture. Usually these bursts are fleeting. They are sparks that flare and vanish. But here, in the velvet cage, at 3 in the morning, the sparks do not go out. The brain enters a sustained state of gamma activity. You are lying in the dark with your eyes closed, and your brain is processing information at its maximum capacity. This is why the thoughts you have right now feel so monumental. This is why a simple memory from 10 years ago suddenly feels like the key to your entire personality. It is not that the world has changed. It is that your processing speed has accelerated, while your sensory input has dropped to zero. There is no sunlight to process. There is no conversation to track. There is no traffic noise to filter out. All that processing power, which usually handles the chaos of the day, is turned inward. It is directed entirely at the archives of your own mind. This can feel terrifying. When that high-voltage light is turned on your insecurities and your fears, it casts long shadows. You might feel like you are losing your mind, but you are actually experiencing a moment of peak cognitive integration. The veil is thin, not because of magic, but because you have removed the noise. You are seeing the raw data of your own life without the buffer of distraction. The velvet cage forces you to look. You cannot run because your body is too heavy. You cannot look away because there is nothing else to see. You are forced to sit with the high-definition clarity of the gamma state. It is an exhausting privilege. You are more awake than you have been all day, and you are completely alone with the truth of who you are. The walls of the cage are soft, but they hold you tight until the frequency drops and the dawn finally breaks the spell. Chapter 8. The Clarity of Shadows. There is a specific texture to the air at 3 in the morning. It feels thinner, sharper. You know this feeling well. You wake up and the house is settled into a deep, rhythmic silence. The streetlights outside cast long, static shapes across the floor. Your first instinct is likely frustration. You look at the clock and calculate how many hours remain before the alarm sounds. You worry about fatigue. You worry about the day ahead. You label this experience as a failure to sleep. But let us reframe this moment. You are not broken. You are simply shifting into a different gear of consciousness. This state creates a unique sensation of reality. It is a phenomenon often described as the thinning of the veil. In a purely secular and psychological sense, this veil is the barrier between your conscious executive mind and the vast library of your subconscious. During the day, that barrier is a fortress. It has to be. You need to navigate traffic and answer emails and maintain social niceties. Your brain actively filters out deep introspection because survival requires you to look outward. But in the architecture of the night, the fortress gates are left open. This is where the biology becomes fascinating. When you drift in this space between deep sleep and full wakefulness, your brain often produces gamma waves. These are the fastest and most subtle brain waves you are capable of generating. Under normal circumstances, we see gamma activity during moments of peak concentration or high-level problem-solving. It is the frequency of the eureka moment. It is the electrical signature of sudden insight. It is paradoxical that this state of hyper-focus arrives when you are lying perfectly still in the dark. This explains the clarity you feel. It explains why a problem that felt like a tangled knot at noon suddenly unravels into a straight line at 3 in the morning. The distraction of the sensory world is gone. The noise of the ego is quieted. You are operating with a heightened bandwidth. Information from different parts of your brain that usually never meet can suddenly communicate. You are experiencing a state of hyper-connectivity. For many, this can feel overwhelming. Without the distractions of the day to buffer you, the truth of your life rises to the surface. It can feel like vulnerability, but it is actually a form of strength. You are accessing a part of your cognitive potential that the daylight hides. You are seeing the architecture of your own life without the clutter of daily maintenance. So when you find yourself staring at the ceiling in the early hours, try to suspend your judgment. Do not view this wakefulness as an enemy.
Do not panic about the lost hours of rest.
Recognize that you have entered a rare and functional state of mind. You are in the gamma state. You are in the clarity of shadows. The world has retreated so that you can finally hear yourself think. The silence is not empty. It is waiting for you to use it. Chapter 9. The Thinning of the Veil. You open your eyes. The room is pitched in absolute darkness. There was no noise that woke you, no car alarm outside, and no creak of the floorboards inside. Yet here you are, wide awake. The red numbers on the clock float in the blackness. 3:13. Or perhaps 3:30. It does not matter. You have entered the liminal hour of the mind. This is not the heavy grogginess of a disturbed sleep. It is a crystalline alertness, a strange and humming clarity that feels out of place while the rest of the world is dormant. You might feel a sudden urge to reach for your phone or panic that you are losing precious hours of rest. But pause for a moment. Feel the unique texture of this wakefulness. It is sharp. It is electric. It feels significant. Neuroscience offers us a map for this territory. It speaks of brainwaves. During your waking day, your mind is a chaotic storm of beta waves. You are processing tasks and navigating traffic and answering emails. When you relax, it slows to alpha. When you sleep, it plunges into the slow, rolling ocean of delta waves where the body repairs itself. But right now, you are in a rare and paradoxical state. You are likely experiencing a burst of gamma waves. These are the fastest and most high-frequency electrical signals your brain can produce. They are usually reserved for moments of peak focus or intense problem-solving. They are the sparks of insight. They are the flash of understanding that connects two unrelated ideas. It is a biological irony. You are lying motionless in the dark, yet your brain is firing with more synchronization than it does at noon. This is why the veil feels thin. This is not a mystical opening to another dimension. It is a biological opening to the deepest parts of your own cognitive architecture. Consider the structure of your daily life. During the day, there is a filter, a thick, heavy curtain that separates your conscious mind from the vast library of your subconscious. You need this curtain. It keeps you functional. It allows you to focus on your work without remembering every regret you have ever had, or analyzing the subtle tone of a conversation from 10 years ago. The curtain blocks the noise so you can survive the day. But at 3 in the morning, the chemical guards that hold that curtain in place have left their posts. The curtain falls. The veil thins. Suddenly, the barrier between what you know and what you feel is gone. The rigid structures of your ego are soft and permeable. This is why problems that seem unsolvable at 2 in the afternoon suddenly unravel with terrifying simplicity at 3 in the morning. The linear logic of the day is replaced by the associative power of the night. You see connections you missed before. You feel the weight of truths you usually ignore. This can be frightening. It is why so many fear the insomnia of the deep night. Without the distractions of the day, there is nowhere to hide from your own complexity. But this is not a malfunction. It is a feature. Your brain is using the silence to integrate information in a way that is impossible during the noise of the sunlight hours. So do not curse the darkness. Do not thrash against the sheets in frustration. You are in a state of heightened integration. You are visiting the backstage of your own theater. The veil is thin, not because something is coming in from the outside, but because the walls inside you have temporarily dissolved. Watch what arises in this space. Listen to the silence. It is the sound of your own mind speaking without a filter. Chapter 10. The First Bird Song. There is a distinct moment when the texture of the night changes. You are no longer in the deep ocean of the middle darkness, where time stands still. You have drifted toward the surface. The air in the room feels different. It is no longer heavy with sleep, but charged with anticipation. And then it happens. A single sound pierces the vacuum. It is the first bird song. It is not the chorus of the morning, not yet. It is a solitary call, a tentative inquiry into the graying silence. For the sleeper who has wrestled with the sheets for hours, this sound can feel like an intrusion. It is a reminder that the world is turning without your permission. It signals that your sanctuary of shadow is about to be breached by the demands of the sun. But there is another way to hear it. Consider the state of your mind in this precise interval. You are not fully asleep, but you are certainly not awake in the traditional sense. You are drifting in a borderland. Neuroscientists identify this transition zone with a specific electrical signature called gamma brainwaves. Usually, this frequency is reserved for moments of peak concentration or sudden insight. It is the spark of the brain binding information together to create a complete picture. It is ironic that you access this state of high-performance processing while lying perfectly still in the dark. This is why the thoughts you have right now feel so potent. The trivial worries of the day have lost their teeth. In their place, you find a strange clarity. The logic of the daylight world is linear and slow, but here, in the pre-dawn quiet, your mind makes leaps. It connects distant memories with present problems. It solves riddles that baffled you 12 hours ago. This is not magic. It is simply biology operating without the interference of sensory noise. The traffic has not started. The phones are silent. The visual input is zero. Your brain has nothing to process but its own internal architecture. The veil that thins is not a mystical barrier between worlds. It is the barrier between your conscious executive self and the vast library of your subconscious. When that first bird sings, it is accompanying a brain that is humming at its highest frequency. You are not suffering from a defect. You are experiencing a rare state of uninhibited mental synthesis. The insomnia that feels like a curse is actually providing you with a window of profound lucidity. You are hyper-aware. Every sound is crisp. Every thought has a sharp edge. The bird calls again. This time it is answered by another. The isolation of the night is breaking. The gamma state will soon fade as the cortisol rises to wake you for the day. The clarity of this twilight state is fragile. It cannot survive the alarm clock or the shower or the commute. It belongs only to this gray hour. So do not fight the wakefulness. Do not clench your jaw and demand sleep that has already fled. Listen to the bird. Recognize that your mind is currently capable of insights that the day cannot provide. You are a sentinel in the quiet. You are watching the changing of the guard. The night has done its work. It has stripped away the noise so you could hear your own thoughts. Now the day arrives to ask what you will do with them. The silence is ending, but the clarity remains yours to keep. The first birdsong is not an alarm. It is a punctuation mark at the end of a long and necessary sentence. The secret appointment. Consider the distinct possibility that you are American Flea Insight Self. Consider the distinct possibility that you are American Flea You with the book. The secret appointment. Consider the distinct possibility that you are American Flea You with the book. The secret appointment. Consider the distinct possibility that you are American Flew with the book. Perhaps you have merely arrived early for the most important meeting of your day. You are currently standing on the threshold of the gamma state. This is a specific and rare frequency of brain activity that flourishes in the borderland between deep REM sleep and full alertness. While the rest of the world assumes you are suffering from a lack of rest, your mind is actually engaging in its highest form of processing. This is exactly why the solution to a complex problem often arrives unbidden in the dark. It is not magic. It is simply your own biology operating without the friction of daily distraction. So do not wrestle with the sheets in frustration. Instead, you must welcome this solitude as a utilitarian tool. You have been granted a quiet hour to organize your chaotic thoughts without the interference of the sun. Listen closely to what your mind is trying to tell you. Accept the clarity. Once you have acknowledged the insight, the sleep you desire will return on its own.